who will replace them. Michael Harrington, SRN News.
One of Iowa's largest cities is the latest municipality to repeal its ban on so-called conversion therapy. That's a practice of helping people reject the gay lifestyle. The city council in Waterloo has repealed its ban after a Christian organization threatened legal action. Liberty Counsel was also behind litigation that resulted in 2 local bans being repealed in Florida in recent years. This is SRN News. Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Colombia's cities to reject recent gasoline price hikes.
The hikes have drastically increased the price of fuel in the South American country. Protesters said the monthly price hikes set by Colombia's first leftist government were making it harder for small businesses to operate and could push up the price of food. The government of President Gustavo Petro says the gasoline subsidies cost about $11 billion a year.
That's Jeremy House reporting. Author and NYU professor Jonathan Haidt says mobile phones are harming children by replacing the role of real-world physical play.
The best kind of play, the healthiest play for human children is outdoor physical play in mixed age groups with some physical risk. That's the way mammals need to play to wire themselves up and to learn how to judge risk for themselves.
Professor Jonathan Haidt was interviewed this week by the Salem Radio Network. More details at srnnews.com.
The following program is sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Get ready with your legal questions and call Patrick now. 877-943-9673. Again, that's 877-943-9673. The law office is open. And now your host, Patrick Smith.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, and we're with you live for the next hour. 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. You can give us a call now. We want to hear from you, Florida. How are you doing after the storm? So today's show dedicated to recovery efforts for the Sunshine State with regard to how everybody's doing. And again, you can, hey, Yamiko, can you pop in here real quick? Yumiko, I'm sorry to do this to you live on the air. The guest at the top of the show is calling my cell phone. So here, hand me my phone real quick. And everyone just take a pause, brief technical difficulty. The number, if you want to be part of the show, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. I think the problem might have solved itself. So getting our first guest of the show queued up here. But today's broadcast, again, dedicated to recovery efforts in light of Hurricane Idalia. We want to hear from you. How are you doing in the different parts of the state? Whether you're up in Dixie, Taylor County, where the brunt of the storm did hit, or whether or not you are in Tampa, Pinellas, Hillsborough County. We want to hear from you and sort of how the storm affected you, how you're doing. And it was definitely a close call for us here in the Sunshine State. And so we want to hear your stories about how you're doing and the recovery efforts underway. So to be part of the show, 877-943-9673, 877-943-9673. The former state senate and current agricultural commissioner, Commissioner Wilton Simpson. Commissioner, thank you for making the time today.
Oh, good morning, Patrick. Glad to do it.
Well, I've been following your social media posts, and I see you guys are working hard up in Dixie County and throughout the state, especially with the Florida Department of Agriculture, Law Enforcement, and Florida Forest Service. So maybe just kind of speak to what you're seeing and the level of damage that was experienced up in Dixie County and sort of the initial recovery efforts and your assessment of how that response is going.
Well, the response is going very well. We've been, the Department of Agriculture, we have a forestry department within that. And obviously, we've got over 140 members of what we would call our frontline team with chainsaw teams, loaders, excavators, things of that nature, working all over the affected area. getting trees out of the way, clearing roads, getting power line areas cleared. But what you're seeing in that area, and I was in Cedar Key again yesterday, I was in Perry and Taylor County, obviously, and the communities there are just coming together in such a big way. It seems like everyone in that area has a chainsaw. Your local sheriff's departments, the Department of Transportation, all of those folks. And then I have to also give a big shout out to FPL and Duke Energy and the co-ops, utilities in those areas. They are doing extraordinary work to get the utilities back on. And it's really a great team effort in that area up there right now. It's going really well.
Well, and I think that's the great narrative, Commissioner Simpson, is the fact that, it's great leaders like you sort of set the tone, and then the rest of the citizens of the state of Florida just sort of follow in suit, and it's about helping that neighbor next door. And when everyone does that, we all seem to just sort of rise higher. And that's the great silver lining from a storm like this, as terrible as it is and as terrible as the devastation has been. It's wonderful to have the opportunity to watch Floridians pull together to rally around each other.
It really is. When you see what's going on there with our teams and the local citizens and the local fire departments, all the frontline responders, the sheriffs, you can see not only are they grateful, but they are figuring out how they can do for themselves. They are. It's really heartwarming to see that community come together. And I'll say, obviously, it's going to take years to fully recover, just like in any major hurricane. But what we're seeing on the ground now, I believe, in just a few weeks, the roads will be clear, the power will be back on, the people will be working and taking care of their families. And it's really an exceptional, what you see is really exceptional, what's going on there.
Well, again, Commissioner Simpson, I know you're extremely busy, especially with the recovery response, so we don't want to take up any more of your time. But again, thank you for taking the time to call in and kind of give us that statewide report as far as how everything's going.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome. Give Kathy our best. And again, you guys have a great Labor Day weekend, okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All righty, you're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. That was our Commissioner of Agriculture, Commissioner Wilton Simpson, giving us a report on Dixie County recovery efforts and sort of the support that we're seeing, the outpouring of support. That number to be part of the show, if you have commentary and you want to report in on how your area was affected and how you're doing, 877-943. 9673 877-943-9673. So transitioning from a statewide approach to a local approach. Joining us now, a very special local guest, our local mayor in Indian Rocks Beach, Mayor Cookie Kennedy. Mayor Kennedy, welcome to the show.
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you in studio. And I watched your press conference and I thought it was excellent. And so I guess kind of speak to the Sand Key storm damage reduction project and sort of what that is. And then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of the beach erosion issue that, we constantly battle in Indian Rocks Beach, but especially after a storm like Idalia, it's sort of taken on renewed importance. So maybe speak a little bit of that, Mayor Kennedy.
Well, the storm damage project is an 8.5 mile project that basically, like I said in the press conference, we all know it as beach renourishment. We were supposed to start in 2024 with the renourishing, and we've been working since 2017 to acquire the easements. And in April, the Corps of Engineers told us that they would not, they denied our waiver. So after the storm, our city manager, Greg Mims, we went out, I think it was the street was 22nd, and the water was just bubbling over our walkways. The ocean was thrashing, causing ledges. We now have 14 out of 28 accesses. And Patrick, it's not just Indian Rocks Beach. I went down to Indian Shores with Kelly Levy, who is the head of public works for the county. And Indian Shores is a mess. As you know, North Reddington and also Bel Air Beach both have had zero sand before we even started this.
Well, and during the press conference, you had mentioned how previously we've had similar restoration projects going back to 92, which I actually remember that in 92 because I was 11.
Oh my God.
But I remember, I've been coming to Indian Rocks Beach and fell in love with it, since the 80s. And it's a special place to me and my family. And I remember the 92 restoration project because I remember finding the huge conch shells
Yes.
as they would,
Yes.
pump the Gulf back, so to speak. And then the 2018 restoration project. So it seems to me like that's a concern because we went from 92 to 2018 and here we're 5 years later and we need another restoration project. So what's the level of frequency you think we're going to have to continue to fight this battle?
Well, I mean, until we can come up with new measures, and there are things that we're discussing with the county. So the bottom line is that this is a plea. One of the things that I said is I don't believe in the bully pulpit. I don't think it solves any. We have to deal with the Corps of Engineers, and frankly, we've had a great relationship with them in all the past renourishments. The Jacksonville office wants us to have it. This is not coming from Florida. This was a decision by the lawyers for the Corps of Engineers. They made a blanket decision that after Hurricane Sandy, and I think you might have heard that in the press conference in the Northeast of the United States in 2012, that from now on, there would everyone had to have easements, every project throughout the state. And I don't know if you know this, but there are now 11 coastal counties in Florida that have been lost their waiver.
Well, and I think this is a statewide problem.
Yes.
So it's not something specific, although I think we are a microcosm in Indian Rocks Beach,
Yes.
and it is an example. I think it's one of those situations where there needs to be action at the state level. And so what's your sense on the likelihood of the waivers being reinstituted?
One of the reporters said to me, you're ready to give up now? They said no to the waiver. And I said, we're never giving up. Okay. That's not even in the spirit of who we are on the Gulf beaches. I just think that we have to continue to be at the table. We have a plan B. That's the most important thing. I mean, we know that 98.6% of the properties, there are 461 properties that need easements. You're not going to get them. Okay. I can tell you an example of our underground utilities. We have one pole up in Indian Rocks Beach because one group would not sign off. And so here we have beautiful Indian Rocks Beach on Gulf Boulevard that all the utilities are covered. And then, we have one pole because one group that lives in that area would not sign for whatever reason.
Well, and I think, so I remember I woke up the morning Adalia had just passed. And I'm watching the storm surge sort of rise in the intercoastal behind our home. And it's sort of right at the top of the seawall.
Yes.
And the reporter comes on and he goes, and we're on a rising tide until 2:00. And I'm like, well, this could get really interesting. And thankfully, the storm surge started to subside. And even with the rising tide, overall, it dropped at that point. But that was where we were on the island. Other neighbors, sort of where you were talking about, down closer to 20th, weren't so fortunate. Maybe speak to some of the flooding that occurred sort of on the non-Gulf side, sort of, on the east side of Gulf Boulevard.
I actually have videos of that. And I will tell you, growing up, I've never, beach or no beach, seen the water rise like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what, I think there was the, the high tide early in the morning.
Well, it was a king tide too, nonetheless.
And a king tide.
Yeah.
And so I think that had a lot to do with it. We have several homes that, are beach cottages that have reached out and are flooded.
I heard as high as 3 feet of water from some of the photos that I saw.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. If you have a comment on Hurricane Adalia, or you have a question related to Hurricane Adalia to Mayor Kennedy, she's here in studio to answer questions regarding the hurricane recovery efforts, specifically 877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. 877-943-9673. Brian, the call screener, standing by to screen your calls. And you can also email your questions, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. com. And in addition to having Mayor of Indian Rocks Beach, Mayor Cookie Kennedy, we also have joining us now on the hotline, Senator Jay Collins. Senator Collins, Jay, how are you today, buddy?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Did you hear Commissioner Simpson's report earlier regarding the statewide recovery efforts?
No, unfortunately, I have been on a phone call working meal distributions up in the northern part of Florida.
Well, and I know you guys are really, really hustling with the recovery efforts, and sort of the general tenor of Commissioner Simpson's response was just the outpouring of support and volunteers to assist neighbors with the recovery efforts. And Jay, it was a close call for Hillsborough County. It was a close call for Pinellas County. So, and even though we didn't take a direct hit, we certainly felt some effects. So maybe speak a little bit to what the damage was like in Hillsborough and where the recovery efforts are there.
Yeah, so things are going pretty well in Hillsborough at this point. It was a close call, to your point. You know, you never really know with hurricane. We have it on track, but we don't control Mother Nature, right? We definitely had some significant flooding down in the Bayshore area. As we do, quite often with a storm like this, that was significant. Most of the damage I've seen are branches down, trees down. I'm sure we'll continue to hear more and more, of little things going on, bits and pieces here. But all in all, I'm happy for our community that we dodged this one. But my heart goes out to the folks up in the northern part of Florida, from Live Oak to Jasper to, all those little towns out there. It's very real out there. And to what you talked about with Commissioner Simpson, there are so many people from our community reaching out and giving back up there just to, follow through with that tradition of neighbors helping neighbors. It's absolutely inspiring. I'm just so grateful for the fact that Floridians understand and stand by other Floridians. It's pretty amazing.
Well, and Mayor Kennedy, maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because in Indian Rocks Beach, when I woke up that morning, instantly, the first thing I saw were neighbors who had pickup trucks that were high enough heading out in the flooded streets to check on other neighbors. So, I mean, how many examples of that did you personally see?
There are a ton of them. And we're always like that. You live in Indian Rocks Beach.
Yes,
I mean, everybody helps everybody. We have a great volunteer group. I've had so many people reach out on Facebook and want to know who to write letters to help us with the beach renourishment. But just, good folks who live in our community helping each other. I mean, that's how we are. And that's how this is us.
Yeah. So, Jay, so what sort of immediate recovery efforts are underway as far as Hillsborough, or with the flooding mostly subside? I don't think anywhere in Hillsborough is still currently underwater, correct? I think everything's okay. Yeah. So are there any recovery efforts underway in Hillsborough still, or is it pretty much settled down for the most part?
Yeah, it's pretty much settled down from what I'm tracking here. On the other side, given the nature that our legislature is part-time, I also work in the disaster recovery space, feeding people. So my nonprofit's out feeding people. We're doing 15 to 20,000, maybe up to 30,000 hot meals a day to all those little towns and communities all throughout the north. And, here in Hillsborough, we have had just tons of people I know that you want to give back. Call and I have this, I have that. How can my family and I help our friends, our family, other Floridians up there? It's really inspiring. And Mayor, you mentioned it earlier. It is. That is the way we do business here in Florida. It's absolutely true, and it's one of the things that I think we all love about it.
Well, and Jay, let me ask you a follow-up question that's potentially a fastball. So I'll give you a chance to say you can answer later if you want to, because I didn't prepare you with this question. But how do you think Idalia is going to affect the current homeowners insurance crisis facing the state?
Well, that's something that we're all going to have to continue to work through. And, what we put in legislatively, we've got to give time to let that bake in. But I can promise you this. From the governor across all the leadership in the state, our hands and eyes are wide open and watching to see how this thing works. And, we also pay the premiums. We're watching. I talk to my constituents every single day about this subject. And we are watching this. But this was a pretty substantial storm up in the northern part of the state. So many communities truly affected. It's it's concerning. So it's something that we have to keep aware of and keep working on.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like you mentioned, it was a close call for us. So we're watching the storm shift, and as I'm watching Dennis Phillips sort of say, hey, it's supposed to be turning, it's not turning. So we're starting to celebrate a little bit here, but it's sort of that catch-22, because now we have to, we're celebrating, but now we're praying for our fellow Floridians in, Dixie, Taylor, Leon counties. And while that's unique because it will target just one, it can only land one time theoretically. And although briefly they talked about it potentially looping back around, we're all in the homeowners insurance crisis together. And I know that there is the potential for a special session to be called to address a particular issue. Are you hearing any murmurings as far as a special session to address the homeowners insurance crisis?
Yeah, so you kind of start hearing rumors of a special session. Now, no specifics have really leaked out yet, but I can tell you this, from constituents to leaders across the state, everybody is very aware of what's going on with insurance. We want to take care of our state and our people and make sure that we're lining things up the best we can. So I think across the way, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, we're all committed to making sure we get this right. That's really the important thing here.
Wow. Senator Collins, we appreciate you making the time. Again, joining us on the hotline, Senator Jay Collins, your Florida State Senator for Tampa. And Jay, I know how incredibly busy you are on this recovery effort morning and this Labor Day weekend when you could be off with your family. And it means the world you took the time to call in. So thank you, Jay.
Man, it's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. And I just want to say, look, if you're listening, reach out, check on your neighbors, check on the people up north. Let's find ways to honor that time-honored tradition of Floridians helping Floridians, neighbors helping neighbors. It truly is, and this is what it's about. Yep. We get to serve our community. Thank you for the opportunity.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Jay. Thank you so much. Have a great Labor Day weekend, okay?
You too. Thanks, Don. Bye.
All righty. 877-943-9673. If you have a call or a comment on Hurricane Idalia, 877-943-9673. Give us a call now. That was Senator Jay Collins. And at the top of the show, we had Commissioner of Agriculture Wilton Simpson. And with us in studio, Mayor Cookie Kennedy, the mayor of Indian Rocks Beach. And, Mayor Kennedy, that's one of the things that I think it's got to be frustrating as a city official. So you guys really don't have much control over an issue like homeowners insurance. And yet you have to see the residents sort of suffer the consequence of these rising rates, especially in a town like Indian Rocks Beach.
Absolutely. And we've had some residents reach out because of the flooding. FEMA's not stepping in because we're in an A zone. Mm-hmm. So I had to have one of our citizens called the other day, and I had I sent him over to Senator DeCiglia, Kim Burfield, Representative Burfield, and Lindsey Cross, Representative Lindsey Cross, to try to. I think our representatives need to see what we're going through. I know there are a ton of people who have lost their wind. I'm one of them. I know. That has lost our wind insurance, windstorm. So,
well, and it's getting more and more expensive. Yes. I mean, you're watching it. So the sense I'm getting from homeowners insurance companies are, be thankful we, only raised your rate by 50%. At least we didn't cancel you. Wow. How dare you question us?
Wow.
We're being gracious over here and only raising it 40 or 50%. And it makes me confident to hear that someone like Senator Jay Collins has his eye on the ball. And there's other state senators that I've spoken to. They are actively working on remedies to give Floridians relief from this homeowners insurance crisis. But it is a challenging time to be a Floridian with the storm and rising insurance rates. So if you want to be part of the show to speak to that, 877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Let's go to Indian Rocks Beach and let's talk to John. John, welcome to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show.
Well, good morning, Patrick, and good morning to Cookie as well. I just appreciate you guys, Patrick, you doing the show every week and all the great advice you give everyone. And
I appreciate your kind words, John. Thank you.
Hi, John.
Appreciate you. Good morning, Cookie. Appreciate you guys covering the topic. So I have one question and one comment. Like both of you, I walk the beaches, and the sand that Indian Rocks had is now in Bel Air Shores. And as you probably recall, Bel Air Shores did not participate in the beach replenishment because they didn't want to allow access to their beaches, which, to receive federal funds is required. So my first question is, should we be looking at this at the state level as opposed to an individual city level? Because the ocean doesn't know boundaries, and based on the direction of the wind, the sand is only going to shift. So that's question one. I'll give you a chance to think about that. And then my second question is, for the holdouts for the easements, could we use eminent domain? Thanks.
Mayor Kennedy, would you like to take the first stab at those?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say is, this is the federal government pays 60% of the beach renourishment. The state pays 20%, and the county pays 20%. So locally, it's really not up to us as far as, the cities. If they choose not to, the reasons that the Corps, they did not want to do, the Bel Air Shore did not want to do the parking. So that's how that happened. That's a good question about the eminent domain. I think right now there's too many. So that's a big problem.
Is Bel Air Shore the one where we're not allowed to have umbrellas?
Yes.
Okay. Because, it's always, you can sort of see the line of demarcation. Because
Yes, you can.
It's like everybody's having fun and then they're not. And then there's the line where Bel Air Shore starts.
Shout out to Mayor Bob, who's a really awesome guy.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, they've just got a particular rule there. And I remember like one day being down there, and for the first time I was like, why are there no people for this section of the beach? And then someone explained the rules to me way back when about no umbrellas, and there's other rules about that. John, to answer your question, yes, it should be a statewide issue. Yes, there should be federal participation. As far as I'm concerned, I think the coordinated efforts among all the counties is going to be the most efficient methodology. And speaking to efficiency, eminent domain, while it could get us there, I don't think it's the most efficient way. I think the waiver model is far superior because it avoids something called litigation. And if we go eminent domain, lawyers will have to get involved. And as much as I'm a fan of lawyers getting involved, John, in this particular case, it's a state budget. That's a finite budget. We only have so much money to go around. So if we can do this and save taxpayer dollars, why not do it that way? And I think a little bit of cooperation from the Army Corps of Engineers gets us there a lot cheaper.
That was a good answer.
Thank you. Thank you. John, did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you, Patrick. I just know getting waivers, that is and as Cookie, I think, mentioned that there was 11 that have already been rescinded. So I unless you can get them to change their policy, that's going to be a tough one. But thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a matter of, the right officials in the right positions, doing what they need to do to make that happen. And that sometimes comes down to good old fashioned politicking, I think. So, John, appreciate you calling in.
Thank you. Thank you, Cookie.
Thank you.
All righty. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith. If you have a comment on Hurricane Idalia, legal question, or a comment or question for Mayor Cookie Kennedy, our special guest in studio, Mayor of Indian Rocks Beach, 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. And you can also email me, patrick@attorneypatricksmith.com. Nate, the intern, did prep a couple of items that I do want to touch on because they are going to affect some people. According to Fox Business News, Florida officials announced on Sunday that fuel, this was past Sunday, purchased after 10 a.m. on Saturday was likely contaminated with diesel if it was supplied by Citgo from the Port of Tampa. The reason why I'm bringing it up, there is a methodology here. If you believe you were affected by that, you can reach out directly to the FDACS, which is, again, that was, we could ask Commissioner Simpson about that. The number, 1-800-HELP-FLA or fdacs.gov. Again, 1-800-HELP-FLA or fdacs.gov. You can reach out directly if you are in need of assistance. And again, Fox Business News has the list of all of the sites. There were 17 of them, according to this. And they range from Lehigh Acres, Fort Myers, Lakeland, Brooksville, Dunellen, Daytona Beach, all the way up to Umatilla. So throughout the state of Florida, if you were affected by that, again, you can reach out directly for assistance to the state by dialing 1-800-HELP, FLA, or going to fdacs.gov if you were affected by the contaminated gas. Cookie, did you know anybody connected or affected by the contaminated gas? I have yet to run into it. Okay,
I do not.
Which makes me think they probably got it pretty early and caught it before it affected anyone. And I heard someone actually ask a great question. They said, well, I know if diesel has been introduced into regular gas, it'll affect, a regular engine. But what if it's the other way around? Would a diesel engine be affected if it was? And the answer is yes. So it doesn't can't just reuse the gas for some other purpose. So 877-943-9673. But I admired the outside the box thinking. As wrong as it was, I admired it. So 877-943-9673. This is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. With me in studio, special guest, Mayor of Indian Rocks Beach, Mayor Cookie Kennedy. And our next special guest joining us on the hotline, our state senator from Indian Rocks Beach, Senator Nick DeCiglia. Nick, good morning. Happy Saturday. How are you?
Good morning. Happy Saturday. I'm doing well. Thank you.
So I saw you at the press conference, and it looked like you were certainly providing a strong presence there. So I guess, and Nick, you and I talked because we don't live too far from each other in Indian Rocks Beach, and we were talking, and your street, the pictures maybe speak to how your street looked immediately after Idalia passing, because your area was one of the harder hit areas in Indian Rocks Beach, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we had some flooding, obviously, from the storm surge. Our house was fine. We seemed to be kind of on the high ground on 12th Avenue. It's one of the fingers on Indian Rocks Beach. But when you go 10 houses down, especially, I would say, around 10 o'clock in the morning, after a couple of these heavy rain bands came through, there was about, 2 feet of water. Receded rather quickly. And then around noontime, we were anticipating, that high tide coming in the afternoon, and the water did not rise any higher than it did earlier that morning. So I think all in all, we did fairly well. I know a couple of my neighbors did have some water in their garage. So really low-lying areas, obviously there was an issue. But I think really much more importantly, two areas in Pinellas County that we're concerned about. Number one, obviously, is the beach erosion. You mentioned Mayor Kennedy had a press conference yesterday to, really highlight, the urgency of our county, getting beach renourishment and what that looks like in the future. And then I think the second, problem area that we have in the county is the Shore Acres neighborhood in St. Petersburg, where, they tend to flood on a sunny day on high tides. There was significant damage to hundreds of homes. There was one home that unfortunately was lost due to fire. And so, it's my understanding county and local officials, along with FEMA, are assessing the damage there. But, those two areas, I think, primarily are kind of the areas that are going to need some help moving forward. But all in all, once again, the Tampa Bay area has dodged the bullet. And, it's, I think the evacuation orders and along with the Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Gaultier, I think did a phenomenal job in getting that message out clearly, early. And I think there was a really great coordinated effort from all levels of government, which, quite frankly, it's the one thing that government should be doing very well. And I think when it comes to emergency management in the state of Florida, I think we have got it spot on. Proud of the governor, proud of his team, and again, local and federal level just really did a phenomenal job during pre-storm, during storm, and then now, of course, in many cases, the recovery.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think Governor DeSantis did another amazing job leading the state through a natural disaster. And I don't know if you heard, but we had a resident citizen of Indian Rocks Beach, John, call in just shortly ago, Nick, and the question was about kind of the waiver situation with regard to
Mm-hmm.
the beach restoration project and whether or not eminent domain would be a more appropriate or efficient path. I wanted to get your opinion on that. I got kind of Jay's thought a little bit about it earlier and about the homeowners insurance crisis. And I do want to touch on that with you as well to give you a heads up.
Mm-hmm.
But first, what do you think about the waivers? How likely do you think they are to go through? And do you think eminent domain would be a more efficient option, or is it even an option at all in your opinion?
No, I don't support eminent domain because we're talking about private property rights, and private property rights, as you know, is protected, under our Constitution. Now, fully understand the impact of this storm and potential future storms and the erosion of our beaches. I'm not going to downplay that in any way. The fact of the matter is this: we need 100% participation with these easements. That's not going to happen. So I think we need to kind of move on from that. I think the second thing that's likely not to happen is the Army Corps of Engineers relaxing this requirement. I don't see that happening. When I speak to county officials, I speak with our congresswoman. I don't think that is on the table as well. So I think the question is, and we somewhat touched on this at the press conference yesterday. What does that plan B look like? How does the county identify the dollars that are required, along with the state? The state has I think a skin in the game here too, obviously. The question is, what does that look like? The question is, if we go, and provide this beach renourishment without federal government, what does that mean for future projects, and the involvement of the federal government? My understanding, and I've heard this, multiple times, that if the county does move forward without the Army Corps of Engineers, then the Army Corps of Engineers will essentially not participate in any beach renourishment project ever. So they'll be completely out. And so, I have some questions as to exactly what does that mean? What does that mean when it comes to FEMA being on the ground after a storm event like we just had? Does that impact, FEMA being here to provide relief? Those are, I think, really important questions that, that we have to get answered before any of this Plan B, is decided. That being said, I do think there's clearly a public interest in making sure that we have, programs in place to renourish our beaches, because, it's my understanding that, many parts of the beach. I'm going down to Treasure Island this morning at Sunset Beach. They basically have no beach left.
Right.
And so this is a significant problem. And again, we're at the height of the hurricane season, so we still have essentially 2 full months to go before we can sigh relief here. And the problem is, even if we were to decide today that we're going to do beach renourishment, we're still well over a year and a half out from that project being started. So this is an issue that's been going on since 2017. And, it's my opinion, this is one of the most, critical issues that our county faces. And by the way, this is not just Pinellas County. This is, there are multiple counties along our state on the east and west coast that are dealing with the same issue. And of course, other states in the country are also dealing with this very, frustrating challenge that the Army Corps of Engineers has laid on us.
Yeah. And for those of you just joining us, that's Senator Nick DeCiglia, our state senator for Indian Rocks Beach and Pinellas County. Also with us in studio, Mayor Cookie Kennedy, the mayor of the city of Indian Rocks Beach. I'm your host, Attorney Patrick Smith, and this is the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. If you have a question, 877-943-9673. Again, that toll-free number, 877-943-9673. Nick, before I let you go, and I'll let you continue on with your trip to Treasure Island and your Labor Day weekend, I hope you're certainly going to squeeze in some relaxing time, as hard as you guys have been working over the last week or so, and really throughout the year. Jonathan Martin, as I am, I really get a front row seat to how hard you guys work, and I'll tell you right now, it is often a thankless job. So thank you, Nick, for everything you do. But I do want to ask you, the homeowners insurance crisis. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in a crisis. There's no question about that. I think we still have thousands of claims that are going, through thousands of Hurricane Ian claims that have yet to be settled. And of course, those claims, are not, they don't have to follow the current law, the reforms that we passed earlier this year, or I should say late last year in the special session. I can tell you that, according to some numbers coming out of Citizens, that lawsuits are coming down. I think that is a good sign. There have been a couple of carriers that are coming into the state. I think they've taken over 200,000 policies from Citizens. I think, one of the most important things that needs to occur right now is a depopulation of Citizens with their policies. There are over 1 million policies. We need to shrink that. It's my understanding that there are likely to be, 2, if not 3 more carriers that come into the state by the end of the year. And when they come into the state, that means that they're going to be obviously writing policies. They're likely to be taking on some of these policies that Citizen holds. And I think that's all a good sign. Now, I will say, despite the fact that we did have a major hurricane hit the state of Florida and the Big Bend this week, I think, the good news from a life in peril standpoint is that it hit an area that isn't very populated, which is great news. I think that's, 2 reasons why we really have not had much loss of life. Number one, I think people adhered to the evacuation orders. And number 2, the landfall was really in an area that was not very, very populated. So those are the 2 most important things. I think from an insurance, property insurance standpoint, I also think that that's good because, the claims should not be as high as they were with Hurricane Ian for those reasons. And I think if we can get through rest of this hurricane season without another hit on our state, I think that is then going to again give that sigh of relief for many insurance companies who are looking to come into the state, because as we have so many people moving into the state. I think that there's an opportunity for these folks to come in here and be successful, and so until we get some competition, until we get some of these folks coming into the state to write these policies, we're not going to see any stabilization. But the fact that these lawsuits are in fact coming down, that was the whole main driver of why we advanced these reforms. And so I do think there's some light at the end of the tunnel. The frustrating thing is not going to happen overnight, and I fully understand the frustration from my constituents and really Floridians across the entire state, because again, Pinellas County is not not the only county dealing with these increase in insurance premiums, but I am fairly optimistic that we're over time, we're going to have a very robust and healthy insurance market in the state of Florida.
Well, and I agree with you, Nick. I think the future's bright. It's the present that's not the most pleasant. But I'm not going to ask you to express an opinion on this, so don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot with this, Nick. But one thing I have heard, and I agree 100% with you, that competition is the ultimate solution to the rate hike. The other methodology is this idea that's been bounced around. I've heard it a couple of times now about doing something similar to the Save Our Homes provision under property taxes, where if someone is insured, their premium can go up, but it can only go up a certain percentage for a locked-in set of years. So you don't have to express an opinion on that, but I just want to know if you've started hearing this idea bounce around as well.
I've heard that from, I would say outside the legislature. I think folks are certainly trying to identify and come up with out of the box ways to deal with this crisis. It's not something that I've had a conversation with internally. I do vice chair, banking and insurance and committee in the Senate. So I've not had those conversations either with staff or with our committee chair. I think, that, it's a touchy thing. I know it's hard for me not to give an opinion. I do serve in the legislature.
Well, you're welcome to give an opinion. I just didn't want to put you on the spot with giving one. So
no. I think at first glance, it really, we've got to identify. I think have we let the free market essentially work the way it's intended to? And free market meaning competition. Competition typically drives down rates, etc. I don't know if we're there yet. Again, these reforms take time. I would like to see these reforms, see over time how they ultimately work within that free market. That being said, as with a lot of other public policy areas, I'm always open to, kind of seeing what a concept looks like, seeing what the potential unintended consequences are, pros and cons, and obviously if it makes sense, We get all stakeholders obviously involved in that conversation. I am more than open to, any type of out of the box thinking when it comes to property insurance, because again, to your point, I think there is an argument to be made that what we've been doing, maybe it's not the greatest system that we have. But, again, to make significant changes like that, certainly we're going to have, quite a number of public conversations, workshops, et cetera, to have that conversation. But again, certainly very open to having those conversations.
Well, and I agree with you, and I didn't want to taint your answer, but for the record, I have yet to hear from a state official of any type, a representative or senator or any. These have all been sort of layperson, sort of Monday morning quarterbacking the situation. So it's really easy to throw out an idea when you don't have to get it through committee or to the floor or past a vote or anything like that. So, but anyway, Nick, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. And any parting words?
Yeah, I would just say, look, we dodged a bullet here once again in Tampa Bay. I want to thank the residents for adhering to the evacuation orders, and again, my kudos to the federal, state, and local officials who really coordinated, I think, in a really great, incredible manner. And again, if there's anything that my office can do, please feel free to reach out. We're obviously always available for our constituents and happy to help in any way that we can.
All righty, Nick, have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you. You too, sir.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, Senator Nick DeCiglia, our state senator for Indian Rocks Beach, Pinellas County, and with us in studio still, Mayor Kennedy of Indian Rocks Beach as well. 877-943-9673. 877-943-9673. So it sounds to me, Cookie, like there is, everybody's kind of in agreement that something needs to change. It's how that change is going to happen seems to be where everyone's sort of butting heads.
Well, I want to read a statement to you because that was one of the things that was stated about the Plan B that we have, and the county, Kelly Levy and I, she helped me put it together. And so this is what it is. And I also, a lot of residents have said that they would like to write letters, emails and such. So I'm going to give the two names,
please,
that they can. One is to Major General William Graham. He is the Deputy Chief of Engineers and Commanding General for Civil and Emergency Operations at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And the other, who is even more important, is the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Michael Connor. And I will get you their emails. They're on Facebook. They're on my Facebook. We also have a Sandkey project that Matt Loader's son-in-law, JT, has put together specifically about this issue. And the email addresses are on there, but I will get them to you, and you can put them on the show if you'd like. The other is what we're asking from the Corps of Engineers is that the easement language be reconsidered and consistent with the project coordination agreement, which calls for easements for the construction, operation, and maintenance of the project and acknowledges the state of Florida's public beach laws, including the erosion control line. Based on the location of the erosion control line, we have said from the beginning that over 98% of the Sandkey project is on public land, and that we will get the 1.4% that is on private property. We will get those easements so that you're aware. Yeah, and we feel this is a unique situation.
It is. And I'm glad you brought up Major General William Graham. Because joining us, no, I'm just kidding. He's not on the phone.
I hope he is. I can't wait to talk to him.
Okay. But we do have some special guests on the line. So if you want to be part of the show, by the way, 877-943-9673. I have a history of surprising Indian Rocks Beach officials with special guests.
Well, I know you do.
All right. All right, let's go to veteran hurricane correspondent Robert Pankow. Robert, thanks for making the time. What are you seeing out there, Robert?
Well, right now I'm looking at some of the issues that everyone has to deal with after the storm. It can be a real big issue. Thousands of homes were flooded here in Pasco County, where I live, and points north as well. And one of the big issues we've seen after big storms like this is that fraudulent contractors will come in.
Good point.
and-
Scammers.
Yeah, exactly, scammers. And people have to be very careful. And everybody wants to get their house fixed as fast as possible.
Yesterday. They all want it fixed yesterday.
Absolutely. And some of these fraudsters are very convincing that they can get the work done for less money so long as you can give them some cash up front. And I've seen a lot of people lose their insurance money to these people, and it's truly tragic because once your cash is gone, it's gone.
Yeah, you can't get it back. Can't get blood from a turnip. Robert, I appreciate you calling. I got to let you go because I'm going to try to jump to get Roger real quick. Okay.
Okay.
All righty. Thank you, Robert. All right. Let's quickly jump to Roger Schulman. Roger, what are you seeing out there? Another veteran correspondent of Salem Communications. Roger, what are you seeing?
Good morning.
Good morning.
A couple of things that I noticed, along with Robert Pankow, the danger of the Teslas and other electronic vehicles. The saltwater intrusion has caused a lot of them to burst into flames, and they have become time bombs because a month from now, you might have it in your garage, and some of this saltwater crust that's built on the battery might cause it to ignite. We had one major fire, Parkin 66, that took over an hour to put out because the car just incinerated itself. The Teslas burn at about 4,900 degrees. A normal car fire is about 1,900. So they are intense and very difficult to put out. And if you have one, it's suggested you not put it in the garage for a
Roger,
while.
thank you for giving me an anxiety attack. I appreciate that. So have a great rest of your day, Roger. Okay. All right. You're listening to the Attorney Patrick Smith Show. Thank you, Mayor Cookie Kennedy, for being with us today. And if you guys want to tune in next week, the number to be part of the show, 877-943-9673. To reach me at the office, 877-754-6764. That toll-free number to schedule your consultation in Clearwater, Sarasota, Sun City Center. 877-754-6764. Everybody stay safe. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
The preceding was sponsored by the law offices of Patrick L. Smith. W282CI Tampa, W271CY Lakeland, W262CP Bayonet Point.
Online at letstalkfaith.com or listen on TuneIn and Odyssey.
Need a good shot of your favorite pastor? Well, you can get him anywhere and everywhere at oneplace.com and the One Place app. If you miss the daily dose of encouragement you need, find it there. If you want to hear that great sermon one more time, it's all there. We don't encourage you to leave this station, not ever. But when you want a repeat, you know where to go. Oneplace.com and the One Place app. No matter what happens, we're always on.
This decade is looking like the worst one to retire or be retired in. For more than 30 years, Bob Carlson's Retirement Watch has been helping Americans invest, protect, and grow their assets. Subscribe to Retirement